I need to finally finish what I've started. This bone block floor has been a pain in my butt for about the past 2 weeks now. It takes such a long time of AFKing to even get enough bones to put a dent in this thing. And then once you have the bones, it takes forever to even place all the blocks down. But the horror of this floor not being done ends today. It ends today. Now that we have a beefed up mob farm, I should be able to get the bones pretty quickly, at least a lot quicker than I was before. And I should be able to finish up this floor in no time. Just from sitting AFK up in that bad boy for about 30 minutes, I've managed to not only get a full inventory's worth of bones, but also almost a full shulker box worth. This mob farm is literally my saving grace because without this bone floor would never happen. Like, I don't even think it would be physically possible to get that many bones. All those bones managed to get us about 16 stacks of bone blocks, which I know is not even close to enough because we already have about 33 stacks in my base right now. And I think we're about a third of the way there. So I need to triple the amount of bone blocks that I have. So I'm gonna go AFK for probably about another hour and see how many bones we can get. I've managed to gather almost a complete shulker box worth of bone blocks. So I'm gonna go put these into my base and see exactly how far this will get us. And once again, I was way too over optimistic. I mean, this is hitting the point of crazy, right? That's what, nearly 60 stacks of bone blocks, and we just crossed the halfway point. I mean, I barely reached it. Every stack of bone blocks comes out to be about 3 stacks of bones, and considering that that is about 60, we're gonna need roughly 180 stacks of bones in order to fill in the second half of this circle. Oh, I'm way in over my head. But mark my words, this floor will be completed by the end of this episode. I promise. It will happen. I'm sick of looking at this thing halfway completed. I want to see it all the way done. I'm gonna let my camera account go AFK over there to keep getting us bones, and in the meantime, I'm gonna start trying to figure out what I want this wall to look like that's gonna be going all the way around my base. Because as I stated in the previous episode, I was a little worried about this being a little too tall, which is why I cut it short. But I'm still not quite sure how I'm gonna manage to get a wall up and over the top of this thing and it not look too crowded. As you all know, this is the style of wall that I'm going to be building all the way around my tower. Off camera, I've worked a little bit on the design because I want the wall to kind of go up and in just a little bit towards the tower to give it a little bit of depth. That way it's not just a straight up wall. Now the only thing that I'm worried about with this wall and my bamboo farm specifically is that if this wall starts going in too far, too short, it's gonna run into the farm, and I don't want that to happen. So I gotta make sure that this wall is A, tall enough, and B, is thin enough to where it doesn't run into my bamboo farm. As you can tell, there's not a whole lot of rhyme or reason as to where I place the blocks, so the width of this wall is actually kind of gonna be a rough estimate of the wall that's gonna be in the actual server, because I can shrink it down just a little bit if I need to. This wall looks like it's currently 11 blocks wide with the little bits of blocks that I have coming out of the ends as well included. But the outside of the wall is shorter than the inside of the wall because I have this little 3-block gap that adds this little bit of depth as the wall goes in and up. So assuming this is the middle block, we've got about 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 blocks of space to work with. To be honest, I don't think that's enough, but once again, we can kind of shrink this down a little bit, maybe a block or 2. But let's go ahead and hop back into the server and see if that 11 block mold will fit. So this line right here was originally where I was planning on putting the center of the wall. So if this is the middle, we went 1, 2, 3, 4 to the outside. 2, 3, 4, 5. So that means we go 6 blocks this way. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh. It's gonna literally be touching my farm. That's okay though, because as I said, we can trim off a block on the end because that was including those like 2 blocks that stuck out a little bit farther than the rest. So that'll give us a good block of space in between our wall and our farm, which actually I think might be perfect. For the first time in my life, I think I have accidentally done something perfect. Wow, what a great day. The next thing I gotta figure out is how tall I need to make this wall in order to actually cover the farm, because my plan is to have this wall tall enough to where you won't even see this farm. The farm will only be visible from the inside of my tower. From the outside, all you'll see is this massive wall that goes around my tower. So the wall that I currently have in my creative world is 26 blocks high. By the looks of it, it seems like my bamboo farm is 34 blocks tall. So I think I want my wall to actually be a little bit taller than the farm. So I think increasing the one that we have in my creative world by about 12 or 14 blocks will work perfectly. So that dirt pillar right there would be the height of my wall if I were to add an extra 14 blocks to the top of it. And I think that's a perfect height. It's tall enough to cover the top of my bamboo farm and leaves a little bit of overhang. That way it doesn't look awkward. The two main blocks that are gonna make up this wall are concrete and wool. Which between this wool farm and the string that I'm getting from the mob grinder, wool I don't think is gonna be a problem. Concrete on the other hand, I don't yet have a way to get a large amount of that. So I think the best logical thing to do at this point would be to make, excuse me, sir, how dare you interrupt me? Anyways, as I was saying, I think the best course of action here is to make an automatic concrete maker using a TNT duplicator. Now, I've never actually used one of these before, so I'm going to be using a design by Logical Geek Boy. I'll be linking that video down in the description, which looks a little something like this. I know it looks super complicated, but actually, believe it or not, it's really not too resource intensive. I did make one modification to Logical Geek Boy's original design, and that was to this piston system that actually pushes these blocks outward into the TNT system. The one that was originally included in this design was a little slow. It wasn't quite as instant as this one was. So what I did was actually take this piston system that Mumbo used in his Hermitcraft Season 7 farm, and I added it to this one to make this thing an absolute monster. All we gotta do to turn on this farm is flick this lever. This dispenser will be feeding us concrete powder. That way we don't have to constantly have it in our inventories. We can just fill this double chest with it, and we can just leave ourselves AFK holding right click. And as you can see, these pistons are pushing these blocks out. These pistons are pushing these blocks down, and this TNT duper is blowing up this concrete, putting it into this water stream system. And when I tell you this thing produces some concrete, this thing produces some serious concrete. I mean, within, I don't know, probably 20 seconds of running this farm, I got 2 stacks of concrete in here, which is ridiculously quick. So I think it's about time to hop back over onto the server and get this bad boy built. All the resources have been gathered together for this build, and now all we gotta do is figure out exactly where we want to put this bad boy. I went ahead and drew out the outline of how big my wall is going to be on this corner here, and to be honest, there's a lot of real estate in this corner of the base. So what I'm thinking I might end up doing is actually making this part diagonal. So instead of having like a sharp corner square going all the way around, I might have maybe from this block here to this block over here, having it go diagonal. That way it has a little bit more shape to it and there's not just so much open space right here. But at the same time, this would be a perfect spot to put all kinds of TNT duplicator machines. Like I can have the concrete one here, I can have the cobblestone one here. Ooh. Okay, I think I'm gonna leave it a square and I'm gonna go ahead and build the concrete maker in this part of the base. I've done some measuring out of dimensions and whatnot, and I think this block right here should be the middle of our concrete farm. That'll hopefully center it to the corner of the base and leave plenty of room for our wall to come out about 5 blocks before it hits anything here. To be honest with you, I'm kind of nervous to start building this thing because I'm worried that I miscalculated the dimensions and where everything's gonna go and I'm gonna have to move it. But as I've said in a previous episode, you know the old saying, YOLO, just build it, and if it doesn't work, you know, move it. First things first, we gotta create the system that's gonna be collecting all of our concrete that falls down and puts them into that storage system right there. And this should be working, so if I throw something in here, it should circle around, fall in there, and make its way into this bottom chest. Perfect. Next is to create the dropper system that's gonna be feeding us concrete, as well as the piston system that's going to be pushing our concrete down to the TNT duplicator. Cool, this is all good to go. So if we flick this lever, this dispenser should start firing, which is a great sign. And if we place a block on this piston here, it'll get pushed, and that's perfect. And next up is the most exciting part of this build by far, and that's the TNT duper. And that should hopefully be the TNT duplicator 100% complete, I think. Just to give a brief overview of how this thing actually works, whenever you turn on this lever, this redstone signal will come down here and unlock this hopper, which currently has an item. And this item will start circling around this hopper clock. And whenever it gets to that hopper right there that has the comparator coming out of it, it will send a signal up here to this block here, which will power this gate, which will drop the TNT. And it will also send a redstone signal up here to this piston here, which will push and ignite this TNT, which will allow it to fall and blow up. That was a really simple explanation. I'm not super good at explaining this thing. If you do want a good tutorial on how to build this and how this actually works, go check out Il Mango because he's the one that originally created this design. I'm going to test this to make sure it works. And it's always nerve-wracking to do this because, you know, if the TNT doesn't fall or something happens, it's going to blow up like half of what I just built. But it's better for it to blow up now than when this thing is completely done and it blows up even more. So hopefully, give this thing a flick. Please fall. Please, 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 please. Yes! That's perfect. Except I'm noticing the TNT didn't duplicate. Interesting. I can't actually figure out what's causing this to break. My only assumption is that I haven't built the rest of this, so maybe the rest of the farm has something to do with this working properly. So I'm gonna go ahead and get cracking on building the system that pushes all of these concrete blocks down and see if that doesn't fix the problem. And now that we've got that system created, this machine should be good to go. I say should because I'm honestly not too confident. And without further ado, let's flick this lever and see what happens. And it didn't work. Dang it. I don't know. I'm completely stumped. I mean, this is an exact replica of what I built in my creative world. I can't figure out why this TNT won't duplicate. I've done some Googling and apparently TNT dupers don't work on paper servers, which is what this is running on. So basically the past like 2 hours I've spent building this in the creative world, planning it out, building it in the survival world has been a waste because it doesn't work. Thankfully, the owner of the server changed a few settings, so now if I flick this lever, this TNT should duplicate. And it's not. Oh, the minecart's missing. Dang it! I messed up. I can't believe I just did that. Oh no! And fingers crossed. I think I fixed everything correctly. Yes. Okay. There we go. Finally, this thing works. My goal, at least for right now, is to create the skeleton of the wall that's going to be covering the bamboo farm, just to see the size of it and if I actually like it. So basically, I need to craft a crap ton of concrete because that's what that wall is entirely made of. I'm gonna go ahead and use a time lapse to show myself turning all this white concrete powder into concrete, so I'll see you on the other side. And as you can see, this thing is an extremely well-oiled machine. This is probably 5 minutes worth of sitting up there and we almost got an entire double chest of concrete. I mean, that's extremely efficient. Concrete in hand, I can finally start designing this wall that's gonna be going around my tower. First thing I gotta do is figure out where exactly this is gonna move in towards the tower. And to do that, I need to find the midway point of this tower here. That's actually gonna be the height of my wall. So I believe this right here is going to be the overall shape of the wall. It goes in about 3 blocks towards the tower, which I think will give it a good amount of depth. So it's not just a straight wall up, it has a little bit of character to it. So now I pretty much just need to carry this design all the way to this side of the farm and all the way to that side of the farm. And nearly a double chest and a half later of concrete, we have finished this portion of the wall. I'm starting to realize how resource intensive this is going to be because this is probably, I'd have to guess, about 1/8 of the total wall. And I've already gone through 100 stacks of concrete. So that means I probably need roughly 700 more stacks of concrete. And that's not even including the concrete that I'm going to be throwing in here to give this wall some texture, which I imagine will probably be about another 10 inventories worth. So 23 inventories worth of concrete. This is stupid. The last thing I'm going to figure out for today's episode is what I'm going to do with these little areas where the wall doesn't meet the ground. And I think what I'm going to do, which is just a super simple solution, is build this out another 3 blocks and then drop it to every single spot that it needs to go to. That way it still carries this look like it's going up and over. I think it'll look good. And just as I suspected, I like it. It looks really good. I am having to use my imagination a little bit here because this wall does look extremely plain in 2D. But once I start to get some of the detail bits in here, I think it's gonna look extremely good. I like the height of the wall. I think it's impressive enough to where when you look at it, you're like, holy cow, that's a big wall. But I don't think it'll be too big to where once we have our tower high up there, it'll overshadow it at all. Because I want the tower to be the main central focus of this. Oh, and don't worry, I haven't forgotten about this. So although I may not necessarily want to, I will get this. What is this? A gift, my friend. Use it wisely. Maybe this will help you get closer to the end. Much love, CT Shock. Oh my God. This is beautiful. Cody, you literally just saved me like 2 or 3 hours of AFK. I love you. Thank you. And though this will get us a decent number of the way, I'm definitely going to need probably 2 more of these to actually finish up the rest of the circle, and I really want to knock it out in one try. So I'm gonna go AFK a little bit longer and try to get 2 more shulker boxes worth of bone blocks, and I'll be back then so we can knock this bad boy out. And after about roughly 30 minutes of sitting AFK at the farm, I managed to get just over a shulker box and a half of bone blocks. So we should have about 2.5 inventories worth to get this thing done. And what better way to end today's episode than finishing off the floor with a shader time lapse. As always, if you did enjoy the video, be sure to leave a like and subscribe. It would be greatly appreciated. And if you have any cool ideas on things that I could put in or around my base, be sure to let me know down in the comments section because I love reading your ideas.